Hello, children. Good morning. We have already studied this play on the face of it, and I'm quite sure you must have found it quite interesting. The concern for the handicapped. Their not only physical disability but the mental agony is reflected in this play on the face of it, written by the British writer Susan Hill. Today we are going to discuss the questions that are on this play on the face of it. So let us discuss the textual questions on this play. At first we are going to take up short answer type question. Question number 1. Who is Mr. Lamb? How does Derry get into his garden? You know how is Mr. Lamb? Very optimistic person. Mr. Lamb is an old man who lives in a big house and he has a big garden. He's lame with a tin leg. So he has artificial leg. He is lame. He had lost his leg in the war. Then he enters Mr. Lamb's garden by climbing the wall. He does not come there to steal the apples like other children, but out of sheer curiosity. Question number 2. Do you think all this will change Derry's attitude towards Mr. Lamb? Derry had a negative attitude to life and people due to his burned face. He suffered from an inferiority complex and avoided meeting people. But after his long conversation with Mr. Lamb, he was able to overcome his inferiority complex and changed his attitude. Now we are going to take up long answer type questions. What is it that draws Derry towards Mr. Lamb in spite of himself? Both Derry and Mr. Lamb suffer from physical impairment. So they had both physical disability. Derry has one side of his face disfigured and burned by acid. The old man, Mr. Lamb, has a tin leg because his real leg got blown off during the war. So what had happened to him? His real leg was blown off during the war. Apart from these physical disabilities, Derry finds signs of loneliness and disappointment in Mr. Lamb's life. The old man tries to overcome these feelings, but the sense of alienation felt by him is more painful than the pain caused by physical disability. Derry tries to avoid meeting people because they consider his face frightful and ugly. They avoid him as they are afraid of him. His parents seem worried about him and talk about him and his future. Mr. Lamb provides him a new approach to things. He tells him to see, hear, feel, and think about things around him. He should not hate others. Hatred is worse than acid because it burns the inside. He has all the God given limbs. He must take a firm decision and work towards it. He will succeed. He should not be afraid of people and they will not be afraid of him. All these factors draw Derry towards Mr. Lamb. Now let us discuss question number 2. In which section of the play does Mr. Lamb display signs of loneliness and disappointment? He appears to be very optimistic, but really, he's very hopeful. Really, he's very happy. And we can see in the play there are actually some of the incidents where he displays signs of loneliness and disappointment. What are the ways in which Mr. Lamb tries to overcome these feelings? It is in the middle section of the first scene of the play that Mr. Lamb displays signs of loneliness and disappointment. He says that when it is a bit cooler, he'll get the ladder and a stick and pull down those crab apples. He makes jelly. So what is he doing? He's trying to keep himself busy with all these works. Derry could help him. Then he says he's interested in anybody or anything that God made. It may be a person, a flower, fruit, grass, weeds, or rubbish. There are plenty of things to look at. Some of them are his crab apples, or the weeds, or a spider climb up a silken ladder, or his tall sunflowers. He also likes to talk and have a company. He has a hive of bees, hears them singing, he sits in the sun and reads books. He likes the light and the darkness. He hears the wind coming through open windows. There aren't any curtains at the windows as they either shut things out or shut things in. These are the ways in which Mr. Lamb tries to overcome his loneliness. Question number 3. The actual pain or inconvenience caused by a physical impairment is often much less than the sense of alienation felt by the person with disabilities. What is the kind of behavior that the person expects from others? What does this question mean? It is not the physical disability of a person who is suffering from that, but it's a mental agony which they suffer because of the alienation which these people suffer. And what is the kind of behavior they expect from the society? This is what is the meaning of this question. And a very important question. The play on the face of it focuses our attention on the physical pain and mental anguish of the persons suffering from some physical impairment. The playwright Susan Hill presents the two leading characters, an old man and a small boy, having different sorts of physical disabilities. The old man has a tin leg, that's an artificial leg. It did hurt him when it came off. Then he got used to it. He feels pain now. Then in wet weather, he finds it inconvenient to run, to climb a tree or a ladder. He lives all alone in a big house with a garden. The boy, Derry, has one side of his face badly burned by acid. He felt the physical pain then. After discharge from hospital, he feels hurt at the attitude of the people. They regard his face as horrible and ugly, show signs of being scared, and avoid his presence. In short, he is disliked if not hated. He is not accepted as an ordinary member of society, so he does not like people to look at him. It is clear that the sense of alienation that these disabled persons feel causes them constant pain. Such persons expect kind and considerate behavior from others. They do not want tears, sympathy, or pity. They dislike being pointed at, nicknamed, mocked at, or made a fun of. They only demand a reasonable behavior from others, full of appreciation of their difficulties. Question number 4. Will Derry get back to his old seclusion, or will Mr. Lamb's brief association effect a change in the kind of life if lived in the future. Derry will not get back to his old seclusion, that is secluded, separation, remaining isolated. He has been associated with Mr. Lamb for a short time only, but even this brief association will effect a change in the kind of life he will lead in future. Instead of being conscious of what people comment about the ugliness of his face, he will use his head and heart to achieve what he decides to do in life. It is also possible that with his firm determination and zeal to achieve his aim, he might do better than the rest, even those who do not suffer from any physical impairment. By his persuasive manner and skillful use of anecdotes, Mr. Lamb convinces Derry that a life of seclusion and withdrawal from the world is dull as well as risky. The world has many beautiful objects to see and admire, sounds to hear, and ideas to think. One should have an open mind and positive attitude. Hatred is worse than acid. Derry's mother tries her best to keep Derry with her, but Derry resolves to go back to Mr. Lamb to look at things and listen to him. He no longer cares about his face, what he thinks and feels, and what he wants to see and find out, and here is more important. He does not want to remain at his home. He has got clear perception of things. If he does not go back there, he will never go anywhere in that world again. In short, Dairy's coming back to Miss Lamb is indicative of the change in the kind of life he is likely to lead in future. Now, for this question, there can be one more answer. That here one is given and another one that you can think over that. That here Delhi will not get back to his old seclusion. Here Delhi will remain as he was earlier because the one who has transformed him is dead. And it was a brief association. So you can write with that viewpoint. But this answer which is given here is more convincing and it's a better in the exam if you write this answer. That answer will not be very convincing because Derry has changed and he emphasizes the change that has come in Derry and therefore we feel that this answer is more convincing. Question number 5. Compare and contrast the characters of Mr. Lamb and Derry. You know that the story is revolving around these two important characters. One is Mr. Lamb, who is an old man, and Derry, a young boy. Both Mr. Lamb and the young boy Derry have one thing in common, the physical impairment. Both are victims of these disabilities after birth. The leg of Mr. Lamb was blown off during the war. Derry's face was burned by acid. One side of his face looked very ugly and frightful. Apart from this, they have nothing in common. Mr. Lamb is old. There is a young boy of 40. Mr. Lamb enjoys company and wants to talk. There is very withdrawn and defiant. He does not want to come in contact with people. Mr. Lamb does not bother about his lameness. He has developed love for reading books, hearing music, seeing beautiful things, and thinking about them. He is calm and patient. He asks peculiar questions. He forces Derry to see that actions are more important than mere looks. In spite of his lameness, he picks apples, makes jelly, maintains a beehive, and makes toffees from honey. So he is keeping himself busy with all these things. The gate of his garden is always open. He always likes to talk to people. He always wants company. Then he develops a new vision of life under his guidance. He becomes positive and looks very happy. Now we are going to discuss some of the important points. Reasons for Mr. Lamb's positive influence on Derry. So, what is it that has influenced dairy? Mr. Lamb himself was physically handicapped. So, both their conditions were alike. And he had also been laughed at and rejected. Similar situation Mr. Lamb faced. It was easier for Derry to accept what he said, and therefore Derry was convinced very easily. And that's why he was influenced very much by Mr. Lamb's positive attitude. Now let us see the attitude. Mr. Lamb is not scared or repulsed by him. He accepts him and treats him like a normal person. He seems to understand Derry and his anguish and doesn't pity him. He does not lecture or moralize. He has a positive attitude towards everything. Even feeling that be sing and do not buzz. The fact that he doesn't get angry or put off by Derry's rudeness doesn't force him to stay or listen to him. He just tries to convince him. It never compels him. His views, which are so different from those held by others. So, Mr. Lamb's views. It lets him see he can lead a normal life, unlike Dairy's overprotective parents and others who have isolated him with their negative comments about his appearance. He tells Dairy he can have the world, that it is in his hands, makes him realize that handicaps are not an obstacle, tells him that all was similar and that there was no difference between him and others who were not handicapped. That beauty was relative. He also emphasizes that people cannot be grouped together on the basis of their impairment. Each person is different. Lets him see that people are important and that you cannot reject them or be afraid of them, for then they will do the same. Makes him realize that you cannot just remember the bad things people say, that one should remember that good thing. And Mr. Lamb tells that he feels everyone is a friend till he proved otherwise. So he's ready to accept everyone. The fact that he opens the world to him by telling him to just wait, watch, and listen. He doesn't expect to do anything difficult. Now let us try to understand the character of Devi. They is scared of meeting people as he hates seeing their fear of him and facing their rejection. And that is why he's always keeping himself aloof. Very sensitive, people's comments hurt him deeply. Upset with parents' overprotectiveness and mother's revulsion with his face. Defiant, rude as he's too scared to talk to people. Negative about everything, sees everything in a bad light. Indulges in self-pity over his face, hates sympathy. He hates the world and keeps away from it. So he remains alienated, isolated, inner deep desire to be accepted. Within him, there is a deep desire that everybody should accept him, which he hides under an abrasive exterior. Change in the end after listening to Mr. Lamb. So there is a transformation in him, ready to face the world and overcome obstacle to do so. Finds courage and strength to get what he wants. Now let us try to understand the character of Mr. Lamb, who is a central character. He has brought about a great transformation in a young boy, Dave. Mr. Lamb is very positive, very optimistic in his outlook. He sees the beauty in everything, including weeds. He doesn't let physical handicap prevent him from living life to the fullest. He's very friendly. He opened his doors to the world. His gates are always open. There are no curtains for his windows. He always likes to talk to people, sees the world is important and that people are important. Very strong, doesn't let people's negative comments hurt him. Very practical. knows one's life is in one's own hands, and he tries to bring about a great transformation in Derry. In his attitude, he brings about a change. He understands Derry's problems, and he makes him to understand that what is needed is change in his attitude. Life is in his own hand, not in somebody else's hand. He shouldn't worry about others' comments, but he should lead the life the way he should lead the life. Thank you. Goodbye.